In this episode of Global Warning, if you're using the Signal app, Russia may be watching. Where have all the Chinese fighters gone? Could NATO be closer than you think to sending help to Hormuz? And Pakistan is shocked to have one of their attack dogs it trained bite them. Well, let's get started.
As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Global Warning with Ryan McBeth.
Welcome to Global Warning with Ryan McBeth. Here I offer a brief analysis of newsworthy events, developments, and trends that have been lost in the shuffle of those larger events dominating the news cycle. To start, FBI warns Russian intelligence services are targeting messaging application user accounts. According to a joint statement by the FBI and Cybersecurity Infrastructure and Security Agency, or CISA, Russian intelligence services are targeting commercial messaging application user accounts. Per this joint public service announcement, individual accounts are being compromised, not the actual encryption of the applications themselves. And these operations by Russian intelligence services have resulted in unauthorized access to thousands of individual commercial messaging application user accounts. Once an account is compromised, the malicious actors can view the victim's messages and contact lists, send messages, and conduct additional phishing against other accounts. While the joint public service announcement specifically points to Signal accounts being compromised, similar tactics can be leveraged against other platforms as well. So why does this matter? I currently hear and read comments from people who mention that they hold little or no value when it comes to their online accounts, and this logic is completely ignorant of reality. If you have access to a system, contacts, and valuable data, information can be used to further exploit and target higher value targets. The FBI and CISA recommend strengthening one's cybersecurity practices, using industry best practices when it comes to protecting your identity and information online, and avoiding telltale exploits like suspicious links or attachments, and communicating with unknown or unauthorized individuals. When in doubt, read up on best practices, understand the technology you are using, implement multiple cybersecurity protections, and always follow best practices. This is no longer a thought exercise. This is a warfighting imperative. Next, we have fewer Chinese airspace incursions within Taiwan's ADIZ. On March 15, 2026, the Wall Street Journal reported a 10-day hiatus of Chinese incursions within Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. Since late 2020, what were once occasional Chinese incursions have evolved into this regular cycle that Taiwanese officials have come to characterize as gray zone harassment around the island. Analysts and even Taiwanese and American defense establishments have come to expect Chinese incursions into Taiwan's ADIZ. They've been a regular part of life in Taiwan since 2020, and any hiatus is concerning. In episode 1, I discussed Andrew Erickson's article on PLA military purges. While the purges have been seen as a Chinese equivalent of shooting oneself in the foot, Erickson and others, including me, have come to see them as a sign that the PLA is getting ready for a Taiwan contingency. While this is the biggest lull in Chinese incursions into Taiwan's ADIZ, it isn't the first time such lulls have occurred. In fact, the Institute for the Study of War mentioned a smaller hiatus in China's incursions back in 2025, where the PLA conducted nearly 100 fewer incursions into Taiwan in October of 2025 compared to previous months, possibly due to annual weather patterns. The PLA is conducting incursions at a much higher volume than it did prior to 2024. So why does all this matter? I mean, in the grand scheme of things, a lull can really mean anything. Maybe the weather conditions aren't conducive to safe flight. Pilots and airframes cost money, even to the Chinese. And maybe the Chinese have some weird base beautification events going on. I mean, even the People's Liberation Army Air Force isn't immune to stupidity. Or maybe the Chinese are grounding airframes and crews for extensive repairs and preventive maintenance before an attack. So, as some have suggested, there's little evidence to support it, but the U.S.-Israel war with Iran could also be making fuel more expensive for Chinese military flights, but while we're dreaming, I want a pony. Whatever the case may be, we need to be cautious here, as the Chinese may be getting ready for a Taiwan contingency. Flights are resuming and likely to continue and even increase in frequency and scope as China nears its self-imposed deadline for reunification. Next, we have NATO allies are warming up to the Strait of Hormuz operation. Around 20% of the world's oil supplies move through the bottleneck known as the Strait of Hormuz. While the Trump administration has sought allied support in a military operation to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, there have been rather chilly receptions to such an operation among America's staunchest NATO allies. The Wall Street Journal reports that receptions for the operation have grown warmer, with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte commenting that the UK is leading the multinational effort for a Hormuz operation. Reuters further reported on Monday, March 23, 2026, that at least 22 nations were joining a coalition to keep the Strait of Hormuz accessible. So why does this matter? With the Strait of Hormuz off the table, the bite of this conflict is lessened in a lot of ways. It also places pressure on Iran to come to the negotiating table. Such an operation also pushes the international community to step up and help open the strait, allowing for the flow of around 20% of the world's oil. Although with all this talk about reopening the strait, it can also be argued that the strait isn't exactly closed. I mean, if you open a door to let the cat out and the cat refuses to go outside, the door isn't exactly closed. The cat just doesn't want to leave. What's hard to ignore here is the time it has taken for the international community to move on this. I've often called NATO an unstoppable snail, and this may be the wonder twin powers of stupidity, with NATO's inertia and President Trump's inability to lead the alliance effectively. I'm going to say maybe next time, don't threaten to invade Greenland, but live and learn, I guess. While President Trump and previous administrations have been critical of NATO's speed, this ignores the realities for many NATO countries. They are struggling to respond to military threats at scale. A bit more tact on the American side might be in order, but this, like Ukraine, is a serious wake-up call for NATO and our allies and partners. And finally, we have a war between Afghanistan and Pakistan. Since February 26, 2026, Pakistan has been at war with Afghanistan. And I know what you're thinking. Ryan, how can you tell? Well, let's just say the air around Afghanistan has been spicier than usual. Some reports from Pakistan indicate that the leader of the Taliban has been killed in Pakistani airstrikes. The conflict in Afghanistan is over Afghanistan harboring Tariq al-Taliban militant groups who are supposedly being given safe harbor in Afghanistan and periodically crossing the border into Pakistan to conduct attacks. Pakistani airstrikes have also hit residential areas, civilian infrastructure, and over 20 healthcare facilities, killing at least 75 civilians and displacing about 115,000 others. Pakistan's security apparatus played both sides, both the U.S. and the Taliban, for years during the war in Afghanistan, helping both sides in the event that Pakistan would have a chair when the music stops. And now the Taliban attack dog they helped raise has come back to bite them. So why does this matter? The war between Afghanistan and Pakistan risks bloodier escalation and risks destabilizing the region. A war between both countries is likely to be extremely violent and protracted. And there is no easy way for this conflict to end. With grievances on both sides, you could see entrenched belligerence as the fighting continues. And as the war carries on, it could become a hotspot for China, the United States, and others to shift the balance of power on either side of the conflict. And this is an ongoing development. Thank you for listening. New episodes appear weekly at ryanmcbeth.substack.com, where you can also find the companion intelligence briefing for paid subscribers. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Sources are cited using footnotes and active links to ensure transparency and replication.